Hi guys, and welcome to our first verso for the year for our Year 12 biology. So as you know, we only get to see you guys once for the first 2 weeks, and given that it's a 9-week term, we're pretty pushed for time to get all your EEIs done. So I did want to discuss with you how to use the EEI proposal form that you will need to be submitting. This is due in 1 week, so your next lesson, which is the Monday of week 3. Now this must be completed up until the source review. Okay. If you don't complete this by that time, you will be staying with one of us so that we can get you on track. Really short time frames, we need to make sure that you're up with it. So what I've done is I have created my own fictional EEI, and I'm going to guide you through the whole process of submitting this EEI proposal form so that you're really aware of the requirements that we have. Okay, so I've filled it all out. So I've popped my name in there, I've put the class, I've put the teacher, and then the date that the research proposal is due. Now this is just the first initial part, and this is going to be due, as I said, on the Monday of week 3. This bit here, we need to tick this to say whether it's satisfactory or non-satisfactory, and we'll also give you a submission number based on when you've actually submitted this form. Now for me, I'm going to have a look. I'm really interested in drugs and drug reactions. So I'm looking at how caffeine is metabolized in the body and how the consumption of caffeine, how much caffeine you normally have, affects how tolerant you are. So if you're having 4 cups of coffee every single day, my assumption is that having a single cup of coffee when I'm testing, it won't affect your blood pressure and your heart rate as much as someone who never has coffee. Okay, but I'm going to be looking at that, and I'll also be looking at a number of other factors to see if there are any other links. So what I need to do, the first thing that I've done, is the purpose of the investigation. Now before I go any further, I should really explain to you the reasoning behind doing this EEI proposal. We tend to get, you get a term to do your EEI, and quite often we find that people spend 3/4 of their time doing the testing, and then this really rush 1 or 2 weeks at the end trying to get, to pull together a report. That doesn't work. The testing doesn't need to be difficult. It does not need to be challenging. It doesn't need to be the most exciting method in the whole world. What it does need to do is open it up to be a great, interesting discussion for your EEI. So things like, let's see how much salt I can put into plants and see whether the plants will die. You know what? Salt makes plants die. Okay, that's hardly rocket science, and so I'm not really interested in reading about that. If I can Google the answer really quickly, it's probably not a good topic for an EEI. An EEI is finding out something new, some new information. Okay, so I don't know how this is all going to play out, so what I'm going to do is I want to find out what factors affect how people respond to caffeine. Now the big thing is that you need to have a really good researchable question, and my researchable question is whether regular caffeine consumption means that people are less likely to experience a spike in blood pressure and or are able to recover more quickly if they do experience a spike in blood pressure. So I don't know. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give a really detailed survey of the people involved. I want to find out how much caffeine they normally have. I want to find out what their exercise habits are. I want to find out what their height is. I want to find out if they're male or female. All these kind of information would be done with some sort of a screening form that they'll need to fill out. Now, we're looking at to see how caffeine affects the blood pressure and how this relates to the metabolism of caffeine. Now, we should see, okay, based on the research that I've done, I should see some sort of increase in blood pressure after taking the tablet, and then after a period of time, I should see a bit of a drop in blood pressure. So my method, okay, not complex at all. I'm going to give a no-dose tablet. So no-dose is basically a caffeine tablet. And measure the blood pressure before they take it, 10 minutes after they had it, and an hour after they've taken it. Now, I don't know if that's enough. I might need to say, look, we're going to have to do 3 hours after that if I want to actually start to see that curve coming downwards again, so they're returning to baseline. I don't know, and my method is going to change depending on what I find in my initial tests. So I'm going to sort these people into groups depending on their previous caffeine consumption. So I might have people that have never had caffeine. I might have another group that has 1 to 2 cups of coffee a day, and one group that has 3 or more cups of coffee a day. Now then I'm going to look for patterns in terms of the initial blood pressure spike and their recovery. Now, one really important thing is here, make sure your initial survey has lots of questions, because you know what? If I do this and I find that there is no difference, I'm screwed if I don't have all these other questions or the other information from the screening. All I'll have to say is, oh, there's no difference. Okay, not a really interesting EEI. What I do want to see is maybe I'll have a look at the difference between male and female recovery. Maybe I'll have a look at in terms of if they're regularly exercising. Maybe I'll look at what they were doing in that time between taking the no-dose tablet and having their hour or 2-hour test afterwards. What kind of stuff was going on there in terms of how does that affect their recovery? Okay, so if no difference is found, you can look at some other links. The next thing you can see at the side here, okay, it says, does this satisfy the criteria sheet? So what I've done is I've looked up the criteria that you guys are going to have to stick by. So I'm a very studious person, so I want to really be aiming at the A standard. I'm sure probably most of you will be aiming up there as well. So you want to be able to show me how yours makes links between these ideas rather than just explains the idea, okay? What's the difference between a meaningful interrelationship and just describing the interrelationships? Okay, so what I would like to see is how you are going to show me, okay, what's the difference? What are you going to do in an A standard one that you wouldn't have done in a B standard? Then have a look here. Formulating a justified researchable question or formulating a researchable question. Well, what I've done is certainly do a researchable question, okay? I made it up, so formulated means I made it up, I developed my own. What makes it justified? What would make it justified is it being something that's relevant, something that's real world, and something that actually has some meaning. So mine, I believe it does, okay? And so you need to be able to justify that. And so that's where I'd like to see a bit of a discussion going on there as to what standards you're actually meeting. Now, if you're a current C student, you might be saying, look, I'm going to aim at the B ones, and then you're going to be showing me what you've got in the B standard that someone else wouldn't have in the C, okay? Then I'm looking at doing some research questions. So I have a whole lot of questions there, and you can have a little read through it. So I'm looking at basically, how does caffeine work? Okay, how does it get broken down? What other factors affect it? I need to know the answer to these questions before I do any testing. And the way I do that is by more background research. So there's a whole lot of information there. Please feel free to pause it and have a look through. Now, the best way of getting background research is looking at databases. I do not want to see anyone quoting anything from howthingswork.com or any sort of Wikipedia page, okay? Feel free to look at all of those Wikipedia things to try and understand your concepts. Feel free to have a look at the bottom and get referred to somewhere else. Feel free to use your textbook. But when you are doing your report and when you are finding information, I want you to use journal articles or proper books. And we may try and get you into the State Library at some stage if we can. Okay, it makes a big difference. So what I've done is you can go onto the State Library. All you have to do is Google State Library Database, and it's the first one that comes up after the ads. Okay, so you just need to click onto that and then click join. You don't need to give them any information in terms of your ID and all that kind of thing. That's only if you want to use their resources inside the centre. To use the database, you just need to put in your address, create a username, password, all the rest. I've already done that, so I'm going to go here, okay? And so once I'm logged in, I can go to one search. So I'm going to start having a look. Well, I'm looking at caffeine consumption. So I'm going to put caffeine consumption in here, okay? And I'll search for it. If you can see here, I have 11,000 resources. Okay, so let's try and narrow it down a little bit further. So I might look at caffeine consumption, and I'm also looking at blood pressure. So I'll pop that in there as well. I've still got almost 800 resources there. So instead I might go, well, I'm looking at regular consumption, so I might just go regular, okay, to see if that narrows it down further and I can find any information. Okay, let's have a look. Let's look at the first one here. Blood pressure response to caffeine shows incomplete tolerance after short-term regular consumption. Okay, so this is actually going to be something that's really useful for me. So I'll have a click on here. Okay, all this information here, okay, you can cut and paste this into your pro forma, because this is the information you're going to need for your bibliography. You must save it, okay? It's already in order for you as well, mostly. Okay, so what I do is I look at the summary first, okay? You can go into the full text and you can see here that the full text is available, but we're not going to bother with that just yet. What I want to see is the abstract or the summary to see whether it's going to be something I'm even interested in. So caffeine acutely raises blood pressure. So some of these words you might need to look up. Acutely means that it's almost like an immediate response. It's as opposed to chronic, which is something that's more long term. Okay, the clinical significance of this effect depends on whether blood pressure responses persist in persons who consume caffeine on a daily basis. That's exactly what I'm looking at. So what they've got in there is they've already done some testing, and so I could take their research and build on it. I can use theirs as a basis for my experiment to go off it further, okay? And so I can go further into that and have a look a little bit more, and they might also have some other resources in there, so they might have their bibliography or their reference list. They can refer me to further information. So what you need to do is you need to go and pop that in here, okay? As many notes as you can, and the source. I would expect to see at this stage at least 4 sources that you've had a look at to attempt to answer a whole lot of these questions that you've already written down. At this point, okay, you would write down, what do you need to find out next? What haven't you found out, or what new questions has this raised? Okay, at this point, this is where you need to be finishing and submitting this to us. Once you've got this, we can give you the go-ahead. We can start looking at approving your plans, and you can look at ordering some of your materials in order to do it. We're giving you probably a 2-week testing period. Any more than that and it starts to eat into the report writing time and eat into the beginning, which is really the most important in terms of researching and setting yourself up for the best possible EEI. Okay, so I hope that has helped you. Good luck.